actually gamify dry content when your deadline's next week and your SME's MIA? Are badges really as evil as we make them out to be? And how can you tell if your gamified course is improving learning outcomes or just looking better? If you're asking yourself these questions, that's a good sign that you're thinking about learner engagement the right way. I get these questions all the time from instructional designers who are just a tweak away from finally getting gamification to click. So today we're answering all of them so that you can escape the loop of this should be working, why isn't it, and instead know exactly what to fix and get on with it. And if you're new here, hi, my name is Mary Jo. I'm a former video game producer turned e-learning designer, and I've helped hundreds of instructional designers turn forgettable training into fun and effective experiences that change behavior without extra tools, budget, or time. If that's what you're after, there's a link below where you can check out my program. Now let's get into the most important questions that are keeping you from making effective e-learning. Number one, our LMS has badges, but they don't really seem to be changing our rates of completion. Do we need to ditch them entirely, or is there a better way to use them? Yes, there is a problem with badges, but it's overly simplistic to say badges are bad. The fundamental problem isn't really the badges, it's the way people use them. Imagine you're invited to a 6-hour seminar about zoning laws in Korean with subtitles. You're probably not interested in watching that. But if I offer you free popcorn, you're still not going. The popcorn doesn't change your behavior. But if a new Hunger Games movie comes out, you're not gonna be able to keep me away from that. And in that situation, if I get free popcorn, then it's an extra little treat. It's not the reason why I went in the first place. It's not affecting my behavior at all. It's just a bonus. While in e-learning, badges are free popcorn. By themselves, they won't be enough to change behavior if your course feels like a seminar on zoning laws in Korean. But if you manage by some other means to get the learner to want to do it, and then you give them a badge once they've done it, the badge isn't gonna hurt. It's an inexpensive extra little bonus that you can drop on them once they've done the thing. So the big problem with badges is people often just dangle them in front of the learner and expect an increase in motivation. So if you've switched to an LMS that gives badges and there's not much impact, that's why. You still need to modify the training itself so that it motivates the learner intrinsically, and we'll get into that a little bit in this video. And then if you want to, then you can give the badge as an extra bonus. In short, if you're relying on badges as the primary motivator, they will disappoint you. If you use them instead as an extra bonus, they won't hurt. Question 2. I've got a huge content dump and very little time. What's the first thing you would do to make it gamifiable without reinventing the wheel? Well, I'm hearing two problems here. The first is a huge content dump in very little time, and the second one is make it gamifiable. As far as I'm concerned, I would start by not even thinking about gamification. The first thing you want to do is pare down your content to what's most essential. I'll assume that you know what your real world goal is that your training is trying to achieve and the behaviors that lead to that. So first you want to look at the content dump and identify anything that's not 100% essential. Maybe it's something that doesn't happen often, or something that doesn't have direct impact on the real world result, or it's just nice to know. That stuff can either be taken out completely or made skippable or made optional. Doing that will leave you with more time to work on the essential stuff, and it will focus learner attention. So that's the very first thing to do. Then what I tell people in my program is that if you're short on time, you don't have to overhaul everything. Focus on the one piece of content that matters the most, the one behavior that will move the needle. And you give that one piece of content the full cognitive mechanics treatment. And what I mean by that is turn that content into a challenge that makes the learner think, deduce, and stay active throughout. I'm going to give you an example a little later. That's the most effective method of engaging the learner and making a real-world impact. So you're combining your most important content with your most effective method. Now, if you have more time, you can put more of your content through this treatment, but it's okay if you don't. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. One good targeted tweak goes a long way. All right, question 3. I work in a super corporate environment, no bright colors, no avatars, no bells and whistles. Can I still use gamification, and will it even work? Absolutely you can, and absolutely it will work. If you're thinking about gamification the right way, then you know that it's not about making things look like a game. The ingredients that make games great teachers, the active ingredients of games, have nothing to do with how it looks. It's not the rewards, the badges, the stories, the characters, the avatars. It's not the stuff you see, so you don't need any of that. Effective gamification is way more about how you present the content to make sure the learner is figuring it out for themselves. For example, instead of telling them insects have 6 legs and then asking them later, how many legs do insects have? Get them to figure it out. Show them a bunch of bugs and then have them extract the rule from those examples. Insects have 6 legs. Now they haven't been told the answer, they found the answer. Keep the learner thinking and you can make your e-learning look as serious and professional as your company desires. So even if you're working with a template that's not gamey looking, you can still leverage game thinking by making them find the answers. The learner won't know why, but they'll feel clever and they'll just want to do another module instead of checking out. That's under the hood gamification. Next, how do I know if my gamification is actually working? Not just looks good, I mean real engagement and learning impact. How do you know your gamification is working? The same way you know you need a course. If there's a real world problem like not enough sales, too many workplace accidents, or too many complaints from customers, then your client knows that they need training to solve that issue, and that problem is what you're looking at to see if your gamification is working or not. It's not really about whether people are engaging. Engagement is essential to learning, but it's not our end goal. If people have fun in our training but they don't learn a thing, then we're entertainers, not educators. Engagement is the tool we use to get to those other goals. So whatever the real problem is, that's the best measure of whether your gamification is working or not. Now, a lot of you tell me that your client doesn't come to you with problems, they come to you with content dumps. So the first thing I'd try is to have a discussion about why they feel they need the training. What happens if people don't take the training or don't apply it? That's usually going to lead to a discussion of what the real world problem is. But maybe you don't have access to the client, or you're not in a place that measures the real world stats, or it's just a compliance course. In that case, think about how you can simulate the real world conditions under which people will have to perform the desired behaviors, and how well can they do it in your simulation before versus after the practice that you've given them. That's a good approximation of whether or not it's going to have an impact in the real world. But in order to be effective, you need to make sure that your simulation includes the real world obstacles. Don't just check if they can calculate the right dosage of medication in e-learning, check if they can do it while a patient is screaming at them. That's not just knowledge, that's real world conditions. Next question. I feel like I'm already pretty creative, but I just keep defaulting to slides and knowledge checks. What's the mental shift I need to make to break that habit? Well, you're absolutely right that it is a habit, and the most important one to break is the teach then test model. I've already talked about how we want the learner to figure things out, so that means that we throw them not into the deep end, but we do throw them into some form of challenge right away, before we've even taught them everything. Get them to use what they already know and their innate intelligence. Don't insist on telling them everything before you let them try. I know that sounds obvious, but I swear this is going to be the one that you're going to get the most pushback on. Everyone agrees with this in theory, but when it's go time, we're afraid to challenge the learner without giving them all the relevant information. We turn into like a helicopter mom who's sending their kid to camp. We want to foolproof the activity and make sure that they've gotten all the theory before we ask them to use it. But that's not how we learn anything. Think about the first time you play golf. You don't get a hole-in-one in your first game, or even ever. My first time, I broke a windshield. You just begin and adjust, and if you foster that kind of experience in your e-learning, they'll want to continue. For example, remember the Socratic string from my bird game? First we have them pick the duck, a known bird, then the blue-footed booby, a guessable bird, and then the common hoopoe, totally unknown, but they get it by elimination. They've just learned 2 birds they didn't know, and they were active the whole time, and we never gave them the answers. These are all quiz questions, so there's nothing inherently wrong with quiz questions, just don't think of them only as an assessment tool. They can serve to teach the learner actively right in the beginning. Next question. What if my content is dry and boring? Can gamification really handle that? Yes, and that's where you need it the most, isn't it? Dry content is exactly where most learners disengage, and frankly, it's also where us instructional designers feel our souls leaving our body. But this is where gamified thinking can have the biggest payoff. We often see e-learning as the place where we teach learners rules and information, and then they use those to make decisions and navigate the real world. But gamifying things well means that we turn the content into decisions and actions right in the training. The content may be boring, your word, not mine, but by making it active, you're giving the brain a reason to stay awake. If they can't move forward in your training without taking the right action, then they have to engage and think. They can't zombie click through it. And giving them something to do makes the process a lot less tedious and tiring for the learner. And those courses are often the most satisfying to transform. And finally, I'm not amazing at storyline, I don't know JavaScript, and I don't want to spend weeks fiddling with tools. How much tech do I need to really make this work? work. I really don't want you to spend weeks fiddling with tools either. It's not about the tech, and the best illustration of this is Natasha, a student in my program. She had never even opened Storyline before, and yet just by applying some targeted cognitive mechanics, she was able to land over $50,000 in grants from the demos she made, just presenting questions in the right order so that the learner figures it out. So it's not about being a tech wizard, it's about knowing how to present your content in a cognitively engaging way. So instead of stressing over tech gadgets, which by the way can be a totally time-sucking distraction, laser focus on designing the right experience. It doesn't have to be complicated. So I'm hoping that at least one of these answers helped you stop overthinking and second-guessing yourself. And if you want a proven way to create gamified training that learners actually want to finish, the link to book a free call with me is below. We'll talk about your specific challenges and your goals, and we'll make you a game plan to get you there. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.